Hi, everybody, and welcome back to What That Means Is. Thank you so much for joining us these past episodes. We've really enjoyed and considered it quite a privilege to be able to bring you the breakdown of the report that Ken wrote, and we really hope that it was beneficial to you. In fact, we kind of know that it was beneficial to a lot of people because we've had a lot of feedback from people who are very grateful and really enjoyed what we were talking about and how we were kind of taking everything apart and explaining some things to you to the best of our abilities. So we thank you for that. Now, what we're going to do now is have a couple of concluding episodes. So two concluding episodes because we have a lot to say. This episode, we're going to discuss a few things, and Chris will finish this episode off by some concluding thoughts. And then the following concluding episode, we'll again banter and talk back and forth and have some things to discuss, and then I will have some concluding thoughts. And the reason why Chris and I will have concluding thoughts and Ken will not is because Ken wrote the report. So the task kind of falls on us to say, hopefully, some wise words at the conclusion. Hopefully. I know you will for sure.
Well, let's see about that.
Because Chris is a smart guy. He really is. And he's very funny. We have a lot of good times laughing. And you ought to one day really hear his laugh when he lets loose. It's excellent. So, what I was thinking, hello, Ken.
You know, this kind of reminds me of when I was a kid, and I hate to admit it now, but, you know, watching the television show FBI. Did anybody remember that show?
FBI.
And they would always have chapter headings, and at the end it would go, epilogue. So this is our epilogue.
Yes, yeah, that's good. So we thought what we would do for our benefit and your benefit is kind of just have a sort of a consideration time of an overview and just couple of questions. So what I want to ask you gentlemen is, in hindsight now and having discussed everything that we did in quite a bit of detail, 12 episodes, 89 pages of a report, what stands out in your mind as you consider this? What is sort of the outstanding thought? And that's probably a hard question, but just from a bird's eye view, 30,000 foot view or whatever, what is the thing that stands out to you the most? Let's start with Ken.
Well, you know, there's a lot in there. There's giving children vaccines that were never tested when their probability of getting COVID and dying from it were almost zero. They were 1 in 4 million. There was giving it pregnant women, and there was no testing on pregnant women. There was the whole fiasco about the way the government communicated to you. They told you they had rigorous systems in place and monitoring. So when I think about all that, you know, it's kind of like choosing your favorite child. You know, you can't do it. But what I can say is, what shocked me the most was the totality of the fraud. You know, every time I looked at something when I was doing the report, and every time we talked about things, it was incredibly poorly done, poorly researched. There were, in my opinion, fraud and lies told in all the communications that the government had. You know, today it was masks. Tomorrow it was, are you crazy? You can't wear a mask. They don't work. So again, to me, it was the totality of the fraud.
The totality of you're saying it was poorly researched. It makes me wonder if it was really poorly researched or just purposely just a sloppy job, or maybe they did research it well, but then kind of just gave us the manipulated numbers that they wanted. What do you think?
Well, that's it. You know, this show and the report and our website is called The True Facts, and this is what it means is. Mm-hmm. So the question you've asked is, what's in a person's mind, what's in their soul, what's in their intent? And you know, that's something for the courts to decide. Eventually it'll be something for God to decide. Mm-hmm. But right now, that's why, you know, we need a criminal investigation. We've demanded a criminal investigation. We've been ignored from our police services across Canada. There have been a few exceptions who have told us that they've created investigations, but that's why we need that investigated. We can only tell you what clinical observations we made. You know, this was right, or this was wrong, or this was a lie. Why they did it? Were they incompetent? Did they do it on purpose? Was the advantage of making billions of dollars, was that enough for them to corrupt them? I mean, I just read an article this morning that the previous head of the FDA, during the time that all of this was coming out, for a short period of time, he's now on the board of directors of Pfizer.
Right.
I can't remember the fellow's name. So, you know, I can't say what's in somebody's mind and in their heart, and that's for the courts to decide.
But what we did notice in your report was we were presented with numbers to lead us to think a certain way.
Yeah.
And when you just dissected those numbers and really looked at them factually and graphed them and took them apart, they were really telling us something completely different.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, just for a second, and I know we covered it in a different report. Just for a second, let's consider pregnant women or women who are breastfeeding. So there was no research on pregnant women. mRNA vaccines had never been used in humans before. You know, there was no carcinogenic testing. There was no fertility testing. There was no long-term testing. And your chances of catching and dying of it were 1 1/4 million for that population group. And your chances of just dying from any cause were 1 in 1,700, if my memory serves. Yeah. So those are the facts. Those are the numbers for you to consider. Now, how you understand that, and understanding means that you need to come to some conclusion as to what motivation was. We're not going to provide that, but we will provide you with the utter ludicrousy of these numbers and the actions that were taken. And then, you know, the viewer, the courts, they have to fill in what was the motivation there.
So, Chris, you and I were
Yeah.
kind of discussing something along this line before
Right.
we went to tape.
Yeah.
And I had this definition or this word that I came up with, or a, what would you call it? A
Phrase.
phrase. But I'm going to save that
Okay.
because I want to hear what you have to say. You've got some really great thoughts on this.
Well, I'm glad you asked. My overwhelming thought after spending the several months putting these episodes together and presenting this information from the government's own website, Stats Canada, Health Canada, all those departments, was missing information. And it was printed right in one of their reports or communications, right on the bottom, missing information. Yeah. Well, as we were discussing, that's like getting invited to a wedding, and you know who's getting married. Joe and Mary are getting married. You might know where it is, and you know you're invited, and that's all the information you got. Can you make a decision on that information? You can't.
So you were kind of saying, what are some of the things you'd need to know?
Yeah.
There's an invitation. Joe and Mary are getting
You're invited.
married. But then
You might know where.
You might know where.
Yeah.
But then
even
what
just
else?
one thing missing. The
Right.
date's missing.
Date's missing.
So missing information.
Yeah.
Just a little part of it, which just blows the whole thing up.
Right.
And we experienced that through the whole making every episode. There was missing information, and you were able to extrapolate that information from the numbers that were there, which was very commendable, and it just exposed the nefarious shenanigans that were going on from the government.
And honestly, I really love that analogy that you have Joe and Mary getting married, because really, you can also say Joe and Mary are getting married, and that's all the information that's out there. So it's kind of a gaslighting situation in a way. You know that,
Yeah.
you know they're getting married, but you don't know anything else. So eventually, you start wondering if Joe and Mary
What
are
else
actually
is
getting
wrong?
married.
What else
and,
is wrong?
And do Joe and Mary actually exist?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really good example you
Yeah.
came up with.
But that was my overwhelming thought from the whole number of episodes we put together, was the missing information, and they would just hide that stuff in fine print, and you just didn't have the information to, like I always like to say, if someone gives me some information, it better be complete so I can retell it to someone or share it. If all the information's not there, I don't want to handle the questions that are going to be coming.
Yeah.
So it's terrible.
And then I also thought that when they did give us information, some of it was actually the opposite, as you also discovered.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how insidious this whole thing was.
And it's one thing, like we talked about before, it's one thing if Chris and I are sitting down having a beer together and we're talking about Mary and Joe getting married, and I don't tell them what the date is and stuff. And that's fine. He doesn't have that information because I didn't give it to him. But what happens now if I require him to go to that wedding and I'm going to force him to go to the
Oh,
wedding,
yeah.
or I'm going to take away his house or his job, or I'm going to freeze his bank accounts? That's what they did to you.
Yeah.
You see, they didn't tell you what information they didn't have. They, you know, and I'm thinking about in the report, and I think it was 2 episodes back from this, we talked about the announcement that the government of Canada did. I think it was on December 10th of 2021 when they were announcing the vaccines. And they were telling you that there was rigorous testing.
Right.
And there was great scientific evidence. And they told you that there was a strong monitoring system. So they knew at that point what they had. So it's just like I'm telling him about the wedding. I know the date, but I don't tell him. The government knew that what they didn't know, but then they couched it in terms of rigorous science and strong reporting systems when they knew in those particular instances the reporting system was a voluntary one, and studies have shown that it underreports by a factor of 32 times or more, and then the rigorous science that they did was missing all kinds of information which they didn't tell you about. I mean, when you went to your doctor and they told you to take you're pregnant or nursing and they told you you've got to take this vaccine, they never told you that there was any testing. Now they had that information. So at what point, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, and what point did they cross the threshold of illegality, particularly when they now said, you're going to lose your job.
Right.
You can't go to the store. You can't go and use the medical system. We had medical professionals refusing to give service because they weren't vaccinated.
Right.
I mean, this is incredible. So at what point, and that's the big question, does it become criminal? And a message to our police forces, at what point did this become criminal? When they forced you to take it and they withheld vital information. You need to live with yourselves when you haven't taken action after we've been after them for a year. You know, this report has been circulated around the world. 500,000 times people have downloaded it. They've read it. They've given it to their government officials. They've given it to their police departments. And where's the action? What point, Chris? You used to be a police officer some years ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe it was 20 years ago. He looks like a man of
More than
25.
that.
Looks like a kid.
But, you know, at what point does police inaction become illegal act? When they ignore evidence that's put on their desk and people are dying, at what point are they culpable in the same crime? I don't know the answer
Well,
to that.
and I
folks.
think to myself, well, you know, people might say, well, I don't really want this situation. Why should I stand up? Why, as a RCMP officer or a policeman, this is a really difficult situation. This is really difficult. How is it on me? Well, so when you take an oath, for example, policemen, RCMP officers take oaths.
Right.
All kinds of people have different positions, portfolios, but with those positions comes responsibility. And sometimes those responsibilities are difficult and they require a very direct decision. But with this case, this is what happens when you're a policeman, when you're an RCMP officer. This comes with your job. This is difficult, but it doesn't change the fact that you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to look at what's going on, consider, interview, investigate, because that's your portfolio. That's your job.
When officers would not get the investigation done, they could be charged within the police department for dereliction of duty. So if they didn't
Interesting.
do their job,
That's really interesting.
yeah. So there is some fallback on that. If you don't do your job, you can't just say no,
Yeah.
and you have to do something.
So getting back to what you were saying, I thought this might be a good time to introduce my term that I came up with. I think it's really excellent, as a matter of fact, and the term is arithmetic gaslighting.
Aromatic?
Arithmetic.
Arithmetic, okay.
Arithmetic.
As
So
in arithmetic.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and just for the purposes of you gentlemen and the audience, I'm going to break down what that means is, okay, arithmetic. Definition of arithmetic is, this was interesting, that when I didn't actually think this, realize this when I came up with that term. the branch of mathematics dealing with the properties and manipulation of numbers. Okay, I also have the definition of mathematics over here if you want it. And gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation in which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victim's mind. So arithmetic gaslighting, the branch of the mathematics dealing with the properties and manipulation of numbers, wherein a form of psychological manipulation in which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victim's mind. I believe we've all been victims of arithmetic gaslighting.
In other words, government communications.
Yeah. Well, the other one that jumps out at me is when we were going over the study they said they did with pregnant women.
Yes.
270 participants in the study, 32 out of the first 40 had issues. There was deaths and all kinds of awful things happening. What happened to the other 230? Oh, undetermined. Do you recall that?
I do.
Undetermined. Oh,
Yeah.
what the? A whole plane load, undetermined. Don't know what happened to them people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we did a whole episode, and I think it was called Hiding in... Or What Did They Know? It was called. And we talked about what Chris is mentioning, and we further talked about the FDA in the United States required Pfizer to review the files of 42,000 VAERS reports, and VAERS was the voluntary adverse reactions reporting system in the United States. So they had 42,000 of them, and if you really want to get mad, you want to go back to that episode and watch it, because you know, out of the 42,000, there was 2,000 or 3,000 they didn't know if it was what sex was. There was 12,000 or 11,000 that the outcomes hadn't come out with. There were 1,223, I think, that died. There were another 11 or 12,000 that they had no idea what happened. They didn't know the ages of the people in the study, and yet they went, okay, it's all fine. Now, can you imagine how much damage and how many lives would be saved if in February 28th of 2021, when that report was issued to the government, that they said, wait a minute, we better stop this thing. But they didn't.
No.
Yeah, right. After that, so many people lost their lives.
I saw a show today that they were talking about 6 million people now have died, probably because of vaccines around the world.
Wow.
I don't know where that data came from, but it was a credible source.
And I've seen comparisons to that it's 10 times the number of deaths in the Vietnam War. There were 60,000 killed in the Vietnam War, and it's 10 times as much.
I think you saw the same thing I did,
Yeah.
because they said that, and I can't remember where it was. But.
Well, again, I mean, we can talk about this like till the cows come home too, but
Yeah.
just last week we were talking to somebody who knows a funeral director here in Manitoba, and he said his workload is up 40%.
Yeah. And they're starting to find clots
Yeah.
in Manitoba.
Okay, I'm going to go on with another kind of thought or a question. I sort of consider myself an optimist and a realist at the same time. I should have said it the other way around, a realist and an optimist. So I know that sounds contradictory perhaps, and maybe even incongruent, but fundamentally, I don't really think it has to be. After looking at this report, what are your thoughts realistically, and can you be optimistic as a result? Chris?
Well, I think we can be optimistic. Two things. The first one is that we now know government information is coming completely lacking all the facts, and because of that, it has no credibility. So, like I said to you before, Rosalie,
Yeah.
so are we to assume that this is just on this one incident, the whole COVID situation? Or did this go back before? I mean, this has probably been going on a lot longer. Obviously, it has. We know that for a fact. So now, how does that make you change your mind and not have this blind faith in the government looking out for your the best for you? It's not there.
So what this has prompted, and I think it's an optimistic thing, the whole idea of skepticism.
Right.
To actually think, you know what, just because you're saying that, I'm going to investigate it myself. I'm going to do my own research and
Right.
find out
Yeah.
whether this is true or how this weighs out in the balances. And the other thing is, if you're sniffing something that something's not right, it's probably a good indication that you should at least do some
Yeah.
research and check it out.
And the other thing is, if this report or all this information came and you didn't have to make this report out of it, we'd all be just walking around like sheep, not realizing that our government is, in my opinion, has turned on us, and not looking out for our best interest. We'll put it that way. So now the awakening that's going on, as you get emails all the time, we get comments on our episodes all the time. People are really amazed at the information, and it's not just ours. There's
Right.
dozens and dozens of
Right.
organizations now that came out of this that are exposing the truth. And another thing I'd like to say about all those organizations, we're all volunteers. We're all volunteers. And the other side is using our tax dollars to hire what they figure are the best people and experts, or the paid shills, or whatever you want to call them, to fight against us. And I think we're going to win.
I'm glad
So
that you
that's where
brought
my
that up.
optimism is.
Yeah, good. Yes, and your optimism, if I can even paraphrase it, your optimism is actually in the spirit of people. People
Right.
pulling together and not believing everything that they see and hear. And like the pulling together part of the community, the unity aspect
Yeah.
of things, I think is really important. I'm really glad you brought that up. Really glad you brought that up.
Thanks.
What do you think, Ken?
Well, my optimism, I do have a great deal of optimism about what's happening right now. That's not particularly related to the report itself, but because of the report, I've been embraced by people right across the country, and they send me their stories of courage and bravery. They send me their stories of persistence. This morning I got a couple of really good emails from people who following up with their mayor, following up with their
Really?
MPP, following up with their member of parliament, and
So people are doing something.
people are doing
that's
things.
good.
I mean, again, also when I look at things and look at how many times this voluntary report, and Chris is going to talk about something else a little bit later, but this voluntary report has gone around the world. We did a post on it several weeks ago. We're going to update the post where we show a global world map, and it shows all of the places in the world
Right.
where this has gone. And
Right.
people are reading it, they're passing it along, information's getting out there. I'm optimistic about that.
So keep passing it around.
So keep passing it
Absolutely.
around. Absolutely. And I also get questions from folks all the time. They say, well, did somebody send it to so-and-so? Because I don't want to if it's sent already. And I've said this over and over again. No. Send it. Send it. Don't worry about how many times your MP has gotten it, or how many times your school board has gotten it, or how many times your doctor has seen it. They'll ignore it if they only get it once. They'll ignore it if they get it twice. But if they get it 300 times from 300 different constituents, they will start to listen, and they are starting to listen. So I'm optimistic about that. Also, I want to point out that there is no animal more dangerous than a caged animal or a cornered animal, and that's what we're seeing right now with our government. You might not be aware of it, but Bill C-11 is currently before the Parliament, is being voted on, and that would stop us from bringing you these kinds of messages. That would stop you from being able to have a conversation online with somebody else, because we're going to do an episode in the next season in our series. I don't know whether we decided we're going to switch our way of talking about
Terminology?
them from season to series, but it doesn't matter. But our next
Series.
series are going to be various topics, and one of them that's coming up shortly is going to be on Bill C-11.
This is really important.
This is
Crucial.
a cornered animal striking out. Could you imagine 5 years ago in a democracy them bringing out this kind of legislation that stops people from talking, that applies rules that only people like CBC or CTV or Global will be able to continue to communicate with people, because it gives a wide variety of attack vectors against you. And the other interesting thing that it does is it offsets the ability to make law. They don't call it law, they call it regulations to the CRTC. So they're empowering the CRTC under regulatory framework to regulate the internet and to regulate what you can do. Therefore, it skips the legislative process, so there's no representation in this. So I don't want to go too far off the rails on
No,
this.
but that's a good heads up.
Yeah,
it's a good heads up.
but it certainly tells me when the government is this desperate that we're winning. And I've seen a switch in the emails I get. 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, I was getting emails from people who were desperate and they were just about ready to give up.
And felt hopeless.
And it felt hopeless and more. And I'm seeing a whole change in those emails and a whole change in those discussions where people now know what to do and they're doing things and they're becoming part of changing things. So I am extremely optimistic.
That was great. So, folks, stand up because there are more of you than there are of them. Believe me, believe it. There are more of you than there are of them. So don't be afraid. Stand up. Were you going to say something, Chris?
I was just going to say the Bill C-11, that's the censorship bill, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And again, it's an interesting bill because what it's doing is it's not naming all of the things that we will talk about in a coming episode, but they're giving more additional regulatory power to the CRTC, who then in the shadows will just make these edicts, similar to what the health departments did to you during COVID. So it's a similar playbook.
Mark my words, 2023 is an important year.
Yeah.
Mark my words. All right, one more thing. Where do we go from here?
Who's
Where do we
that
go
one
from
to?
here? Who wants to start?
Where do we go
I'll
from
throw it
here?
open.
We have to get more engagement from grassroots people, from the citizens of Canada. We need you. We need you, your grandmother, your father, your mother, to hand out the report, to talk, to not be afraid to talk about these things. Don't be afraid when someone's screaming at you about a mask or not taking the vax, to stand up and say. Don't be afraid to have those cards that we printed on our website. You can grab those cards and you can download them and print them and have them in your pocket. And when you're having a conversation, just hand someone. You don't even have to even say anything. Mm-hmm. And I know that we have an upcoming episode in season 2, or series 2,
Right.
that's going to be talking about scripts and what you can say and what you can do. But for now, have a pocket full of those business cards with the scan code on it. You download it from our site and just hand it to somebody. Have an infographic page that might be your favorite one out of the report, and you can download those separately too. Just have that and hand it out. Drop it off.
I'm thinking too, it would be a good exercise. We'll provide what we can and pass along to you what others have already started. There's a lot of information out there. But I'm thinking it might be a good exercise for you to sit down and just think to yourself, because you, in a non-threatened situation where you're just thinking, somebody's not actually confronting you, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you think masking is unnecessary? What do you believe about all of this vaccination and pandemic business? What do you believe? Write it down in 3 or 4 or 5 short sentences, so that that's something for you to refer to, that you realize, so that you don't feel like you're being a parrot of this person or a parrot of that person. This is your conviction, because your conviction is important. Your mind is important. Your conscience is important. What you have to say is important. So important. Do not underestimate that. You are your own person, and you have the right to be skeptical. You have the right in any scenario to ask questions. You have the right, and nothing you say is stupid. Nothing you say is stupid. The opposite, the person on the other side or the other frame of thinking will often try to make you feel like you're dumb and you know nothing. Are you a doctor? Are you a doctor? I mean, we've heard that. We were talking to a gentleman a little while ago who isn't a doctor, but who did a lot of research earlier in life and was able to figure out what his problem was, which he was actually dying of. Nobody could help him. And he went through so much investigation just to save his own life. And now he's working towards letting people know, the truth about what's going on. And he has been, affronted or assaulted verbally or whatever online. Are you a doctor? Do you know? I said, why don't you ask them? Why don't you tell me what you know, and then I'll tell you what I know. So, I mean, we don't want to propagate having all these massive debates and going at each other. That's not what unity does. But you need to know where you're at. You need to know who you believe, what you believe, and just to be able to support that and to defend that. You were going to talk about that.
That's exactly what would answer your question. If you do all those things, you can say, when somebody says to you, can you defend what you believe? Yes, I can. Can you? And you want to be able to start a conversation or go into a conversation being able to defend what you believe.
Right.
If you can't defend what you believe, you're never going to get to Joe and Mary's wedding.
Right. And don't you think that if you write down a few things, I have
Right.
found for myself, sometimes in business I had to have some difficult conversations on the phone, and I really have tried to avoid it. I mean, I couldn't avoid it. I knew I had to do it, but I was, nervous and anxious about it. But you know what really helped me? I just wrote everything down. I just wrote it down, and that I felt empowered by that. And sometimes when I had the conversation with the client, that was a difficult client, I didn't even have to necessarily even refer to some of those because it felt empowering to write it down. And maybe the conversation went a whole different route. But because I felt confident, I knew where I was going, I knew what I was going to say, it was so helpful. It seems like such a simple thing, but it's very powerful and it's very enabling and very helpful.
And one thing that'll happen is when you start to stand up for yourself, at first it'll be very scary, but as you go forward, you'll find nobody's pulling out a sword and waving it at me. They're taking it, and maybe somebody's even thinking, maybe not right in front of you, but they might go home and go, "Wow, why did that lady in the Safeway say that to me?" And well, wait a minute, what did she say? And that kind of sounds right.
And it's also very
Possible.
disarming
Right.
when you realize, when you think about the humanity of the other person.
Yeah.
So when you engage the other person with respect to their humanity and just in consideration of that, that does wonders even with how their approach might differ then, and how they accept what you have to say.
Right.
Kindness and love. It's a thought.
Well, I did read an article actually where they were talking about what's that doctor's name in the States that pushed all this.
Dr. McCullough? Dr. Malone?
No, the other side.
Oh,
Ah,
Fauci.
Fauci, yeah.
Sorry, Dr.
They
McCullough.
talked about
Malone.
how did he get you to buy what he was selling. He killed you with kindness. He just stood there very confident, and he was very kind. He wasn't yelling
if
and
he cared
screaming
for
at
you.
anybody. He wasn't yelling and screaming at anybody unless he was in front of Congress. Then he was
Yeah.
losing it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's how he convinced people. Oh yeah, just do it. Here's what we're doing. Operation Warp Speed. We got this. We'll hand it out. Just take it.
Nonchalant.
Yeah. But we can do the same thing. There's no sense getting confrontational with people because
There's no point.
it's going to set them back on their heels and they're not going to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And again, we'll be providing an episode upcoming in Series 2, and we will give you some guidance there, or some ideas, I guess. We're not trying to create robots, but
No.
we will give you some ideas, some thoughts, and
Yeah.
maybe that'll help. And in the meantime, there are resources available on our website,
Yeah.
thetruefactc19.com, and you can download them and arm yourself, so to
Yeah.
speak, with the
Right.
truth.
So what we say, and what anybody, wherever you get your information from, should just serve as a springboard for you to do your own thinking, and also a source of confidence. You need to know and remember, you are not alone. It's really important.
Right.
So without any further ado, we will listen to Chris's final thoughts.
Okay. Well, I just wrote some down here, and I'm just going to basically read my notes. And we kind of covered a lot of this stuff, and well, after the report's been dissected and discussed on this show by Rosalie, Ken, and myself, and then we just talked about the question, where do we go from here? And I like to bang on that old drum of where did this information come from? Where did the information come from for this report? Was it some expert medical person? No. Was it some expert government bureaucrat? Go ahead, answer.
No.
No. Was it some expert pharmacological person? No.
No.
Some expert scientist?
Not.
Absolutely not. The information from this report came from our Canadian and provincial government. It came from Stats Canada, Health Canada, Manitoba Public Health, the Canadian Pandemic Influenza Plan, And also, we threw in Pfizer Canada, their own reports. And that's where this information has come from. So it's not all those other expert opinion of maybe people that aren't paid by somebody or are paid by somebody, a university, a pharmacy company, whatever. This came from the government's own information, and we didn't sprinkle those expert opinions throughout this report. So then we now know that, and this information came to us, and what I wanted to talk about a little bit is I've been called a skeptic when I'm sharing some of this information, or even before I got involved with these two, I'd be talking about some stuff which I could defend what I believed, and people would still say, well, you're a skeptic. So I thought, I better look up what a skeptic is. So the definition of a skeptic is a person inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions. Inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions. Well, as you guys have known me, do you find me kind of wearing that hat? Kind of, pretty much? Or?
That you just are inclined to accept accepted opinions?
A person inclined to question or doubt accepted
You're
opinions.
definitely that.
Yeah.
I thought...
You mean like Galileo or Newton?
Right, yeah.
You mean like Einstein?
Yeah.
You mean like, I don't know, let's think. You're in good company.
Yeah, that's right. I'll actually wear that hat every day of the week. So then I thought, well, if we're going to talk about skeptics, a great buzzword that's gone on is conspiracy theory. So what's a conspiracy? A secret plan by a group to do something harmful or unlawful. A secret plan by a group to do something harmful or unlawful. Have we brought attention to any group that might be doing something unlawful or harmful? Perhaps we have.
Perhaps.
Possibly
Yeah.
we have.
Right.
And a theory is a plausible or scientifically acceptable general principle or body of principles offered to explain phenomena. That's a theory. The theory is the one that can't be proven, right? The hypothesis can be proven. Or is it the other way around?
Can you read that one more time? Read that one more time if you don't
A
mind.
theory is a plausible or scientifically acceptable, and I underlined acceptable here, general principle or body of principles offered to explain a phenomena.
So in general.
In general, exactly.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about that, Chris, is because every time I turn my TV on these days, because there's a lot going on in space right now, and that might sound like this isn't related, but what do they constantly say? Every time a lander or a satellite runs around Uranus or Jupiter, what do they say? Scientists were shocked to find out
Right.
the truth. You know, they always have theories. And the problem with theories is, and I don't know the statistics on this, but I'm a practical scientist myself. You know, when you do 100 theories, probably 99 of them are wrong, and it might even be higher than that. And that's what science is. You throw out a theory, then you investigate to see if it's right or wrong.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about a little farther here is that investigation on continue to trying those theories is now missing from our science. But so anyway, going back to my notes here. So as a skeptic, do you just read a headline and be a doubter? Is that what causes skeptics when people call BS on you or whatever? Is that being a skeptic? No. If you have any curiosity about the issue, you ask some questions. And if this issue has anything to do with the health of your children or grandchildren, you're darn right you ask some questions. Because you should, if you don't care about yourself, you should at least care about what we're going to leave this world for. So, as you know, I'm a former police officer, and as a former police officer, you knew what you needed to do your job. You needed evidence, and you needed evidence information. Evidence was something that furnishes truth. You needed to be able to put your hand on the Bible and swear that you were going to tell the truth. So if you're prepared to do that, you should probably make sure you have the truth, or you needed to be able to get as close to the truth as you possibly could to be able to stand in that court of law and give evidence. You needed to be able to defend what you believed. So when you're given information or instruction, you need to know if that person or source of that information can defend what they believe. And a lot of times not, as we've just observed in the last 3 years. So more and more over this last 3 years, I find myself listening to someone who's giving me information about something, and then I respond with, I don't have enough information to retell that story or reliably pass on that information to others because there's information missing. Mm-hmm. Just like Joe and Mary's wedding. Mm-hmm. Was it
Well
John and
said.
Mary or Joe and Mary?
Well, we're going with Joe and Mary. That was really well said.
Thank you.
That was excellent. Mm-hmm.
So, being curious, you're likely to be an excellent investigator when looking for the truth, which most of the investigators I knew and worked with in my time with the police, they were. They were curious, and they asked that extra question, almost like Columbo. Do you remember Columbo,
Oh, yeah.
Ken? We're 40 years old. We remember that. Do you remember Columbo?
No idea.
Tall, good-looking guy. In a
Tall,
wheelchair, I
good-looking
think
guy.
he was, wasn't he? No, that was Ironside.
That was Ironside. Yeah.
So,
Can I say something?
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but when
go
you're
ahead.
saying investigators that are curious,
yeah.
now isn't that what a scientist is supposed to be?
Well,
Curious?
each of us all would be curious. And if we go back to talking about school and how they're telling you what to think instead of learning how to think.
To think, yeah.
Well, if you were learning how to think, you'd learn to be curious and not just be curious, but know how to act on your curiosity.
Right.
But if you're just being told what to think, you're not going to do either of those things.
Right.
Right?
So I just
and-
bring
and-
that up because the whole
Yeah.
trust the science thing.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, my information or my question right off the bat 3 years ago was, well, show me the data. No problem. Like, just show me.
Yeah.
No. Trust the science.
Trust the science. That doesn't even
Yeah.
make that honestly.
No.
That phrase doesn't even make sense because trust the science. Okay, it's about investigating, like you're talking
Right,
about
right.
curiosity, and so as things evolve, they change, and so it's like the science. That sounds like an absolute. That's it. That's the conclusion. It's not like that.
No.
Nothing is like that.
No. And then one of the other things, I was having a conversation online with somebody about doing due diligence on another individual who was involved in this freedom push. And this individual wrote me back and it says, "You're just going to have to take my word for it." And I started laughing. I said, "I haven't heard that one for about 30 years, but nor have I ever followed that one. You're just going to have to take my word for it."
That's okay when you're
That's
a
not
parent of a 5-year-old and
Yeah.
you want to run across the street and your parent says, "Don't do it." Why not? Just trust me. Just
Yeah.
take my word for
Yeah.
it. That's okay then.
Yeah, this wasn't my mom or dad. They don't know how to email.
And you
or
weren't
anything.
5 years
No,
old either.
No. No.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. That's great. So my belief is that if you're being a skeptic, you're going to get closer to the truth than those going along with the headlines. So what you have is the truth. The truth, as we all know, easy to stand behind. Deception needs continually propped
Right.
up.
Yep.
And the truth, I can forget what we were talking about.
100%.
20 years from now, we could meet somewhere and start talking about it. We'd remember because it's the truth. It's like if somebody BS's you on something. If you call them 3 years later on it, what did I say?
Yeah.
And you
I
only
didn't
need
say
to learn that once or twice and you stop
Yeah.
that. But it just needs continually propped up. The one of the final thoughts I had was what was missing in this whole 3 years. One of the main tools used for digging for the truth been completely avoided by the powers that be. Scientists, the medical industry, government, big pharma, and others. They've just completely put this aside, won't even attempt it, and that's debate. Everything used to be debated. You're a scientist, everything was always debated. You enjoy debate. Pour yourself a glass of scotch with your buddy, maybe he has the opposite idea, and you sit there and debate stuff. My oldest daughter and I used to debate all kinds of things, and we came to the consensus that whoever was loudest was right. But you had to have that debate. If one person walks away from that debate, it's too bad. It's sad. And we've seen all kinds of industries here that I've just named refuse to even come to the debate.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that's a flag.
Well, that's suspicious.
That's a flag. Yeah.
like that's
And
really
you're not
suspicious.
even a cop or anything.
And
You're
I've been hanging
suspicious.
around with you way too much. But it is suspicious if somebody is being so, like, you can't ask many questions. Well,
No.
that's a place of defensiveness, and it's actually a place of insecurity.
For sure. Cowardice.
Cowardice and
Yeah.
insecurity.
Well, you're right, and it comes to mind. You're talking about how if you question something, you're called a skeptic, and I just remind our viewers: have you ever heard of Consumer Reports? CBC, our wonderful CBC, has a show called Marketplace.
That's right.
What do those shows do? They go and skeptically look at claims, and they investigate. Or Consumer Reports looks at 5 different cars and investigates and gives you information back, and you feel like a good shopper when you pick up a Consumer Reports magazine and look it up. And you feel vindicated when CBC does a Marketplace episode on whoever did you wrong. But in this instance, you're not supposed to because you're a skeptic or a conspiracy theorist?
So are you saying that there would be people that would go and actually do an investigation at a place to make this consumer report? Would that be like a journalist, like a true journalist, asking questions, not trying to slant something
An
one way,
actual
or
investigation.
Well,
not compromised?
Well, I think maybe you hit on something about evolution. There's a big debate about evolution, whether it's true or not. But I think the investigative journalists have now evolved into propagandists.
Yes.
I don't see on any of the mainstream media, and my sincerest apologies to those independent journalists who are doing incredible work under incredible
And
conditions.
are very good at it.
And are
Yeah.
very good at
Yeah.
it. But none of the mainstream media or legacy media or dinosaur media, whatever you want to call them, are doing that anymore. So they must have evolved, I guess.
Yeah.
So the natural evolution, this is a theory, a scientific observation. Perhaps it's the natural evolution to go from a skeptic to an investigative reporter to a propagandist.
And you know what? I think you could defend what you believe on that. I think Ken could defend what he believed on that.
What was your analogy earlier about when you go car shopping and you do all your research?
Yeah, I mean, it's not mine. I've read it 100 times on the
Okay.
internet. It's where, if you're shopping for a new house or a car and you go out and do research and you ask questions, you're a good shopper. But if you do that here, you're a conspiracy theorist or something.
Right.
They'll make up anti-vaxxer. Isn't that an interesting term? An anti-vaxxer, an anti-truther.
It's a label.
Yeah.
It's a label.
Sorry, Chris.
Sorry again.
No, that's fine. That's so true. Anti-vaxxer. I always find the word that I think of when I hear somebody yelling at an anti-vaxxer, aggressive.
Yeah.
If I've said, you know what, I'll wait and see what the data says. You're an anti-vaxxer. That's a little aggressive.
Yeah, why?
You know,
Name calling.
Yeah, well, but that's the person that can't defend what they believe. That's where they go,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you can tell them.
Yeah.
And then they run.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
It's cowardly, and you know what? Why they do it? Because they're also covered by the media, the government, our prime minister, who also calls names. But again, I say they're not the majority.
Oh no, they're not at all. They're not at all. But we're not going to use that kind of
Tactic.
to corner people and hold them in a headlock and tell them the truth or the facts that we've found.
Exactly.
So what I've said all along is that as this kind of information gets spread around to people, whether they want to hear it or not, whether it sounds good or bad, tens of thousands of people are becoming aware of the shenanigans by our powers that be.
Yeah.
Like more and more people, and when you talk about optimism, that's what I find. No matter the awful, the worst, the story, and we're seeing stuff you couldn't even make up on the internet and stuff like that is what they're doing. I just sit back and go, good, this maybe wake up a few more thousand. Now they're talking about starting with Prince Edward Island to start a gun buyback program or something. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
Don't do it, PEI.
They're gonna use fear and everything else.
Cornered animal.
Fear and threats, yeah. One more thing to keep in mind is the powers that be are well funded by our tax dollars. They're completely paid people, the best experts, all the consultants, everything else that these people have hired to put this battle against us. And in my opinion, they're being less than accountable to us as citizens and their employers. They work for us.
Exactly.
Like you talked earlier about what all's going on in the internet to track everything about us. This needs to turn around. We need to track everything they're doing.
Yeah.
In fact, we've had meetings with one politician lately where we are going to start holding his feet to the fire because he's proven he's totally unaccountable.
Yeah.
Well, he's just one out of 344
443.
or 443.
I think. You guys could correct us.
See
in
what
the
he did with the
comments.
numbers there?
Yeah. Arithmetic gaslighting.
Yeah. Anyway, on the other hand, we're all unpaid volunteers exposing more of this truth every day. And that's all I got to say about that.
You had one other thing that you
Okay,
were
I might
gonna
have
talk
other
about.
people say.
Yeah. You were going to talk about the information that
Oh,
the government.
okay. Right. So we do have this report, this information, Stats Canada, Health Canada, all that stuff. This report that Ken did picked it all apart and showed what wasn't done. Hold on, folks. Hold on, because they have done studies on masks. They said they weren't effective. They've done studies on social distancing. Said they weren't effective. Said they've done studies on closing large venues and quarantining. Said nope, not effective, not effective, not effective. Right?
Yes.
Teresa Tam, she was involved in this. Big signer on. How many people were involved in this?
There were, again, going by my memory, there was 9 or 14 full pages of acknowledgements.
Yeah.
So I don't know
people
how
who
many
worked
there
I
on
think you said
this.
14 pages. of
Yeah,
it.
something like that.
Now, is this the COVID pandemic plan that they launched in March of 2020? No, this is the Canadian Pandemic Influenza Plan for the health sector, 2006. So they had a plan.
They were thinking in
They
in
had a
advance.
plan,
They were thinking
and
ahead.
it's good. They talk about this stuff that's not effective. Masks, all this stuff is not effective. But what did they do with this when they could have implemented it? What did they do with it? Would you have a garbage can around? Because
Just so happens,
much
I have a garbage right
what
here.
happened was they just quit looking at
What
it.
did they do, Chris?
Quit talking about it, and there it was. It was gone. Not even referred to it. Couldn't use it to back up what they were saying because they didn't want to have it done that way.
Yeah.
They wanted to bring all these draconian measures in, or measures that had never been done before. No, I think actually all of them have been done before, and try and tell us that that's what we needed. And they've proven right in their own 2006 report, none of it was required.
And they never let us know really
They
about
forgot
that
to let us
2000.
know.
You didn't even tell us about it.
Yeah.
And by the way, that report, you can download it off our website. It's in the appendices. So when you go to our website, on the very first page, you can push a button and download our report. And then you can push the button underneath it, which is the appendices.
And how
Which
many
this is-
pages is this baby?
It's over
600?
It's over 500.
Yeah.
I think I said 616 before,
Yeah.
but when I was printing it, I think it said it was 590 or I can't. But it's over 500 pages.
Yeah.
So once again, in the garbage it
trash,
went.
Yeah.
I'm sure glad we banned paper straws, considering how much money they spent on that and how much paper went into the garbage with it.
So I asked Ken what was the budget for that, and he said, well, they can't find it, and all the people that worked on it were already getting paid.
Yeah, they were already salaried.
So that was all
government
buried, and we don't know what that garbage is worth, but who would have paid for that? Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But anyway, that's where we are. Thank you very much.
So that brings to a conclusion our first conclusionary episode. Stay tuned for next week where we'll have the final conclusion.
Episode 2. And I want to make sure everybody understands that this concludes our series 1 or season 1 of what that means is. We're going to start up right again on season 2 or series 2.
Yep.
I guess I'm going to start saying series.
I think series
2.
is good.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with series 2. We've got some incredible shows coming up for you. We're going to be talking about a wide variety of topics. We're going to be talking about the government's Bill C-11. We're going to talk about the facts surrounding masks. We're going to talk about the comparative safety between firearms and the vaccines in Canada. So buckle up.
We're talking about the PCR test.
We're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects. They'll be coming out every Monday, just like this. So again, stay tuned, buckle up.
And we'll have some interviews too.
Yep.
Very interesting interviews.
Yeah.
Yep. Keep pushing. Keep sending out the information. Keep visiting us. Send out when we give out a blog post. If you think it's interesting, share it, please. Everything we've got on our website is open source. What does that mean? It means you can use it. You don't need permission. You can use it. We're giving you permission here. We didn't copyright anything. And just for the record, I know I've harped on this before, but we do not accept funds from any other source except our own. We don't take donations. We don't sell subscriptions. We're completely self-funded. So you know that there's no one in the background pulling the strings.
Right. And another thing I just want to say, I do think it's really important for you to remember, and all of us to remember, 2023 is not going to be a year where we put cruise control on and just glide.
No.
We have to, our foot has got to be on the gas, and we can't give up.
Yeah.
We have to continue going. We can't lessen. We have to increase, actually. That's just how it is. That's not us being militant. That's us responding and needing to know, or knowing that we need to assume our posts. And we have to have our eyes open. We have to be vigilant. We can't give up. Absolutely no cruise control in 2023.
Yeah. If you haven't sent out a copy of this report in 2022, do it now. Do it tomorrow. Do it this afternoon.
So everybody needs to follow their curiosity. Ask
Amen.
questions. Everybody, your doctor, your kid's teacher, your politician, anybody. You need to ask questions until you can defend what you believe. And then you pass that information around. So talk to somebody.
Absolutely. And you know what? Just even asking a question, it's kind of like using the whole casting doubt or just triggering. It doesn't mean that you got to take on a big debate and win it and walk out of the room going, yeah, okay, I think I've really told. Just ask a polite question. That's enough sometimes just to trigger somebody to start thinking, well, that is a good point. And then they go away thinking we don't even realize sometimes how a little tiny seed makes a big difference.
That's right.
And think of your questions. I asked my 15-year-old daughter one Sunday morning, who bought you the beer last night? And she said, Stephen did. How'd you know we were drinking? I said, you just told me.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that little shout. In any
I
case,
told you he was clever.
I guess that concludes episode 13. Again, along the ribbon here, there's information, our contact email, our website. So please keep your comments coming in. And I do want to just make one little point about that. Our report has been viewed 500,000 times all around the world. And just last week, a viewer emailed me and was obviously Canadian, very apologetic, but they actually found a mislabel in one of our labels, and so we're going to have a revision coming out on that, and I'll do a blog post on it because we're completely transparent. And it was in the statistics pages where we said that youth from 0 to 19 years of age, and the statistics were actually for youth from 1 to 19 years of age. So it didn't really change the conclusions, but it was incorrect. And we thank that viewer for communicating with us and letting us know. And we will be having a revision coming out on that shortly. So please, we rely on your commentary. We rely on your support.
So thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you next week. But before we say goodbye, I want to remind you that we appreciate you sincerely, we respect you, and we value you. So do that for yourself. Appreciate yourself, respect yourself, and value yourself, because you are all those things. I mean it. So I'm Rosalie Drysdale, and I'm saying goodbye to you till next week.
Chris Riddell, take care.
So long. We'll see you next week.